Welcome to Radiant Midlife, the podcast for women who know they're here to lead differently. I'm your host, Tara Preston, midlife matriarchal awakening and transition guide, sacred nourishment and feminine prosperity mentor, creator of the Flower of Life Akashic Healing Method and certification, serving women globally for over 14 years. Here we explore midlife as a sacred portal of rebirth, a time for cycle breakers, visionaries, and mothers of new paradigms to awaken their power and rise as matriarchs. Each week, we'll dive into soulful conversations that blend the spiritual and the practical, from feminine leadership, womb wisdom, and prosperity to holistic wellness, hormones, and herbal support. Everything you need to feel nourished, radiant, and free in this next evolution of your life. Because midlife isn't an ending, it's the beginning of your most powerful chapter yet. Before we begin, I'd love to gift you my free ebook, Sacred Nourishment for Midlife Radiance, a beautiful guide filled with nourishing rituals, herbal wisdom, and feminine prosperity practices to support your vitality and radiance. You can download it through the link in the show notes. Welcome home. Enjoy this episode of Radiant Midlife. Hello and welcome to the Radiant Midlife Secret Series podcast. It's like it's a little bit of like a word twister, but I'm getting it. And I'm so excited for today's interview. This is actually the second time that I've had him on the podcast because I really love his voice in the collective conversation of this midlife pivot. Body foundations, vitality, health, so much of what we've been talking about. And today I'm joined by Colin Jackson. His business is Rooted Strength Systems. We were just talking about how much I love that name. And and I'll read his bio and a little bit of what we're going to be covering today. But actually, I think it'd be fun for you just to share on your business name, because I think it speaks to who you are, obviously, and your work. But Colin is a strength and longevity coach, helping women 35 plus build muscle, improve metabolic health, and stay active for life through sustainable training, nutrition, and recovery strategies. And today we're talking about strength training for longevity, building muscle, energy, and resilience after 35. So welcome, Colin. Why don't you start off? We'll see where the conversation flows, keeping it in alignment with our topic, of course. But yeah, why Rooted Strength Systems? I think it's such a cool name.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah, and thanks for having me on here again today. It's always a pleasure. So like context and high level, I can easily take your audience down a rabbit hole that I'm sure will bore them to death. But so the former name of my program was like Prime 35 program. And I just found that it just didn't really reflect totally who I am as a person and how I approach training and my coaching philosophy. I think one thing that I get feedback on from the folks that I work with consistently is just how grounded they feel in my coaching, and how they feel like it really is, strength and longevity for the long term. In the fitness industry, I think there's a lot of like predatory marketing, let's be honest. A lot of it is predatory marketing geared specifically to, your listeners, right? Women sort of 35, 40 plus tend to be, very, very marketed at. But what they're offered, or what y'all are offered, is like not very substantial. You know what I mean? It's very superficial. It's sort of surface area. Lose weight, lose the mental belly, whatever. It's just, and it never really goes beyond that, right? So the approaches or the strategies that are involved in most of those programs are very surface level strategies. So macro counting, before and after photos, measurements, taking weight and just restricting your food, and getting your
Mm-hmm.
ass kicked in some kind of
Yeah.
exercise program that really is just designed to get your ass kicked and designed to like get your heart
Yeah.
rate up. And you know, I don't love the term burn calories, but that's sort of the words that they use.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, I really wanted to communicate, even just through the name of my business, that it really is about going deeper. It really is about, you know, feeling strong, confident, but also at peace and at home in your body, and to really feel that sense of groundedness and that rootedness. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, we're close to the boreal forest. I'm in the boreal forest, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can just look outside and see what happens to trees when they're not rooted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there is an aspect to community that I think is really important when we look at forests and trees and being rooted, and how, you know, the underground network of roots is like, the whole forest is connected.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so I think that's kind of what I see as like the beauty in your offering. And because I know you do a lot of community sort of support in your
Yeah.
program, and I think that feeling of, you know, that you're not alone in this is really important, and feeling that connection and that camaraderie, is really powerful, and it's an integral part of the healing journey. So anyways, so that's sort of high
I
level
love
the,
it.
yeah.
You touched on like so many things that would love to dive into, but I'll try to keep it in,
Yeah,
yeah, alignment with where we're going.
let's
But
dive in.
also, yeah, okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Well, the one thing though is like speaking to like it's holistic. Like you're looking at like strength from like a very holistic perspective and pieces that are often missing, which you were talking about. And I also love that you reference like peace. Because, you know, I
Mhm.
was like I made that post like a month ago, maybe about like the before and after photos in like the online space. Like
Oh, yes,
I just
that's
want
right.
to, and you know, I'm pretty good at being like, I call it happy body. That's like, and like, I just can like rest into like, I just feel strong and like, and at peace. And I just, there's so much noise around like, you need to improve this, you need to look like that, you need to whatever. But I like that you even just mention peace because like, and sometimes I think there's so much emphasis too on just like beauty as we age and like all the beauty. Like, when do we ever just get to like relax into the aging journey and just cultivate peace and the power in that peace? So I love that you mentioned that. And also, you said something else, being rooted and like that's so important like for women because they're generally not so they're rooted because they're so pulled around often by like obligations and family and work and I feel like midlife is that opportunity. So I don't know, I want to hand it over to you, but just if there's just anything else that like in terms of like how you support women and how it lends itself to those, I feel like really important pieces. And we're going to get into like this strength, the physical strength piece, but yeah.
Sorry, what did you want me to dive into? Yes.
Oh, I just was wondering if you had anything else to speak to in terms of like the cultivation of like peace and
Mm,
also being rooted and grounded, is particularly for women because it can be quite difficult, but how your work like supports that. Like, yeah, your framework, yeah. You
mm,
did mention it, but just kind of easing into like how does that apply to like strength training and like what is that like? Yeah.
yeah. Well, um, a lot of times, I'll work with somebody, and you know, when we have our first Zoom call together and we're kind of going through, you know, going through sort of high
Mm-hmm.
level, what's our why, right? Why are we doing this thing together? Why are we working
Mm-hmm.
together? And what do you know, what are we out to accomplish? You know, a lot of times it's, well, you know, my mom has had a hip replacement, or, you know, she can't get off the floor and play with her grandkids. And I don't want to end up like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to slip and break a fall, in my mid or slip and break a hip in a fall in my
Yeah,
mid 60s and mid
totally.
70s. Because for some of my clients, like that's, that's only 20 years away, right? Which isn't a lot of
Right.
time. It's a long time, but it's not really that long. If
Yeah.
we think of where
Yeah,
we were
right.
in
Time's different in
2006,
midlife.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so there's there's a sense of confidence, I think, that
Mm,
comes about almost internally, that goes far beyond what we look like in the mirror, right? It's confidence in knowing that you're going to age with strength, that you can maintain your
mm,
independence. You can catch yourself in a fall, or if God forbid you do break a bone, it's going to heal relatively quickly because
yeah.
you've put in that time to build muscle. You're increasing your bone density through resistance training, right? Which makes you less susceptible to fractures and
Mm,
osteoporosis and osteopenia and all those things that we want to avoid.
right.
Um, so with that confidence, I think comes that peace,
Hmm.
right? Of, I know what my body can do now. It's kind of cool, right? Before I could only
Totally.
squat 20 pounds, but now I'm doing 120 pounds. Like there's just that sense of like it's hard to put in words, but it is a sense of confidence that does bring a sense of peace. And
I think it
with
does. I think I hear what you're saying
yeah,
too. Yeah, like also it's shifting priorities.
yeah,
Like getting to the deeper why, but like shifting your focus, shifting your priority. There is so much peace in that, which kind of is back to like that post where like, oh, sometimes the distraction of like the predatory marketing or just some of the more superficial pieces, it just can pull you out of the piece. But when we shift back to like the confidence building, the deeper why, sometimes even the more practical pieces of like, bone density and some of those pieces, I think it shifts priorities. And then it does
hmm
instill a sense of like peace and confidence. I love that. I don't know. I love that we kind of like just circled through that. Um, Beautiful. So let's kind of, you were talking about bone density and osteoporosis, but why else do you feel that or do you know that strength training matters after 35? I think it's important, and yeah, I'll let you talk because it is really important.
yeah. So 35 is kind of that. I mean, you could just chat GPT or Google, whatever, right? Like a
True.
lot of programs are sort of like geared towards women 35 plus. So I think it's important to recognize why 35, like why that
Hmm.
number specifically,
Right.
because someone who is a woman who's 36 might be freaking out right now, be like, oh my God, I'm over
Right.
35. I got to get my shit together.
Yeah.
Um, so, average age of menopause is like 50 or 51 here in Canada, and perimenopause can sort of begin, 10 years before that. And some women, some women or folks who menstruate, it's been shown that can actually happen as early as 35 for some,
Ah, yeah.
right? So that's kind of why we say 35 plus, but it's
Hmm.
not like, once you cross your 35th birthday, you got to start,
Right.
you know. So I
Today's the
hope,
day.
yeah, and I hope no one listening is so um, freaked out about that. Um, so throughout perimenopause, I mean, you've probably touched on this in your content, I'm sure, but women lose muscle mass, right? I forget what the rate is, but it does accelerate through perimenopause, and we notice that
Hmm.
most of the structural changes, maybe not structural changes, but most of the bone density loss and the muscle mass loss. So muscle mass loss is known as sarcopenia. Sarco means
Oh.
muscles, um, or referencing the muscles. So that, and it's a hormonally driven muscle loss. So due to
Hmm.
the fluctuations and the drops in estrogen, as you experience more and more
Oh.
anovulatory cycles and yada yada yada,
Yeah.
right? So women lose muscle mass at an accelerated rate, through perimenopause, and then it just
Right.
sort of flatlines after postmenopause or starts to decline even. Um,
Okay.
so that's why it's important to really start looking at our lifestyle in these years, right? Because um, this is kind of going a little bit back and forth here, but you
That's
touched
okay.
on it as how midlife is really an opportunity, right, to
Hmm.
approach things differently. And I think one of the things that we can really do differently, and I know I'm not a perimenopausal woman, and I'm saying we, so just go with it. But
Yeah, I love it.
one of the things we maybe it's like the men who support
Yeah,
can do
absolutely.
differently in midlife, right? Is
Hmm.
um, we can stop making it about how our body looks,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, because there's also those all those sort of brain changes that happen through perimenopause too, where those estrogen and progesterone receptors are getting sort of pruned back. And I remember
Hmm.
being told once by a clinician, it's almost like we start to give less. Can I swear on this podcast or no? Probably not,
Yeah,
eh?
sure. Go for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we start to
Yeah.
give less fucks
Yeah.
about stop caring so much about what people think. And I think by
Hmm.
extension is like we can stop caring maybe what we think about our bodies in terms of like its
Hmm.
appearance, right? Um, so it really sort of lays out this opportunity to get stronger, start building muscle, not worry so much about how it looks or what the number is on the scale, and
Hmm.
just focus on building as much muscle mass as we can through perimenopause while we still have that. I'm saying we, while you also have that
Hmm. Well,
estrogen
you're like a part of
floating
the
around.
expert team. You're in it with us.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like a support. Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Yeah,
So at the same,
I love that. Hmm.
yeah. So on the one hand, we can really, focus on building muscle mass, building strength, and maintaining our bone density through perimenopause and kind of safeguard against some of those hormonal driven changes that would happen if we do nothing. Um,
Hmm.
on the other hand, it's an opportunity for us, for y'all to you get to set the terms of like what do you want your life to look like, and what do you value and what does strength look like for you, right? And like what cool
Oh
things do you
yeah, there
think
we
could
go.
open the doors up
Hmm.
when you are strong? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
I love that. And that's been a little bit of a theme with a few different interviews is we've mentioned or the guest has mentioned, pick choosing your timeline for aging. It doesn't have to be the timeline of your mom or your grandma, and we can like totally, bless our ancestors and recognize the strengths in their journey, but also we can choose our own journey of aging and what that gets to look like. And you're saying, the same thing, like it gets to be on your terms and why are you doing this and what feels important and how can you support that process. Yeah, I think that's
Hmm.
really important. Hmm.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I can relate to that experience. I mean, my dad died when he was 56, suddenly, he's not a healthy man.
Oh.
Um,
Hmm.
and he didn't exercise. He wasn't lifting weights.
Right.
So when I talk about like, yeah, we can define what that means for us. I mean, I'm right there in that boat. I'm pushing 40 years old here, and
Wow.
I don't want to end up like my dad either, right? Just as much as I might have a client who doesn't want to end up like her mom. So I get what
Hmm.
that feels like, and um, I get wanting to do things differently than our parents did, than our
Hmm.
ancestors did. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I often will hear my mom say, I'm going to end up like grandpa. Like, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. I'm like,
Mhm.
Mom, stop affirming that. You can do it differently. I'm saying that because there might be someone listening being like, oh, my mom has this, or my mom has that. But we can, we have the power to shift, and there is genetics play into it, but we have the power to shift to, really claim our own timeline. So, yeah.
And a lot of that, yeah, there
So
is some genetic
when you're
component to that, but
supporting, go ahead.
oh, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say, yeah, there, of course, there's a big genetic component to it. And I mean, in my family, heart disease, diabetes is just rampant. So is alcoholism. So is,
Right.
a host of other things. Um, but like, man, like a lot of it, we have a surprising amount of ability to influence, I guess, what our body does by the way that we live our lives, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
not smoking, not
Right.
drinking excessively, getting
Yeah.
exercise, getting movement, eating whole foods, like it really, it doesn't take much to move those levers. So, I'm
Mm-hmm.
somebody who, if I sit and think too long about my dad, I can for sure like, oh, feel that fear, right, come
Right.
up. Like,
Right.
fucking, my God, this is only like 17 years. Like, what? I don't want to
Right.
like pass out face down
Exactly.
on my bed and fucking cool. Like, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
but like, and like so many physicians will tell me like the biggest sort of risk factors are like, do you smoke? Do you eat
Right.
excessive sugar? Are you sleeping? Like, do you exercise? Like all of those things,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
um, and of course, the way that we talk about how, and we can talk about that a little bit more, is like
Mhm.
it's just some of the differences in how women can approach that in midlife in a way that works for your physiology and your hormones, and how that
Oh,
looks different
yeah.
than what a 20-year-old guy would do at the gym, whatever, right? But you had a
Yeah, I think
question,
that's
so
an
I'm
no, I was just gonna say I think it kind of like ties into like what like sustainable fitness habits, but it kind of also ties into what you were just gonna bring forward to like um how we approach this not as somebody who's 20, but like with where we're at. And did you want to add into that? Because I feel like yeah, I was kind of in the same terrain, but you brought forward an interesting point.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess
If you
yeah,
remember
that's yeah, kind of like was going down a rabbit hole there.
it.
Um,
That's okay, it was good.
yeah, that's a good segue to talk into that. So, uh, okay, so what I've found is like a lot of fitness programs, let's say, that are marketed
Hmm.
to women are actually
Hmm.
the kind of like bodybuilder bro style workouts where you
Right.
have like,
Hmm.
if we're talking about resistance training, right? Like working out, you'll have
Hmm.
like a leg day, a chest and tries day. See, I'm not even like, how do they pair the muscle groups together? Chest and tries, or back and biceps, or arms and abs. Like they really kind of sort of compartmentalize the body into different
Hmm.
segments, and then they just like throw a lot of sets and reps, a lot of different exercises at you, and it's like, here's your program.
Hmm.
Well, that works if there's a number of conditions that have to be present in order for that to work, and they're not but you are 20 years old and you've got the hormonal profile of a 20-year-old. So if you're a guy,
Right.
raging testosterone, if you're a woman, like high estrogen,
Right.
which effectively do same-ish things inside their respective bodies.
Hmm.
um or you have a lot of time on your hands, like you're in your
Right.
20s,
Yeah.
right? If
Right.
you don't have
Yeah.
a family, a mortgage, a career, etc.
Right.
um
Yeah.
or if you're like or if you're on drugs. That's
Hmm.
the other thing that
Right.
I think we could kind of, well, we could just call it out, because I remember you talking about that sort of before and after photo,
Hmm.
and just the
Right.
marketing that's being thrown at women,
Hmm. Hmm.
whether it's peptides or GLP-1s or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Drugs are so prevalent in the fitness industry, and a lot of people do not disclose that they're on drugs. And
I
I
know
think it's
that bugs
really
me.
worth
I really, yeah.
it's worth
I'm like, yeah, but
mentioning
how'd you do
because
it? Like, are you doing it like without that? Because, yeah, I don't know. Okay, go ahead.
well, there's you could just, you know the more drastic a transformation appears, depending on length of time, right? If it's like a 3 to 4 years between photos, okay, like I'll do that, but if it's
Right.
like 6 months to a year, I'm like, I, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, there's
Yeah.
something else going on here that you're
Right.
not disclosing. So just be honest, right? Just be honest. If you're on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
just disclose it, right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise it's misleading, right? And it's creating,
Yeah.
um, well, I mean, you experienced it, right? It's that
Mm-hmm.
feeling that kind of comes up when you see some content like that. That's why I don't
Mm-hmm.
do before and afters in my program. People might ask me
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey, should I take progress photos and upload
Mm-hmm.
them to your training app?" Like, if you want them for you, save them on
Yeah.
a separate folder off of this app. I mean, I don't need
Yeah.
to see it. I'm not going to use them for marketing. It's so I find that type of stuff to be misleading. So if you're young, if you have a shitload of time in your hands and not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
expenses, um, and if they're on drugs, that this one or more of those conditions have to be present in order for somebody to like fully execute um, a program like that. Most times
Mm-hmm.
for the women that I work with, what we're looking at is like full body strength training days,
Mm-hmm.
anywhere between 2 to 4 times a week. For most women,
Mm-hmm.
it's looking like 3 days a week and not a lot of time. 30 minutes to an hour is really all you need. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I find for women, really women's bodies, generally speaking, in perimenopause, respond well to intensity. Um, okay, so what do I mean by intensity? What I mean intensity, I don't mean something that's just challenging because you can go
Mm-hmm.
to like an F45 or Orange Theory or a Pilates class even. It can be really fucking hard for an hour that you're doing it, but it's not intense is the way that we would sort of categorically in the strength training community defined as intense. Intense for me is like it's really fucking hard for a short period of
Okay.
time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're looking at strength training, say like doing some barbell squats, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want that to feel really intense for a short period of time. And that could look anywhere between like 4 to 12 repetitions within any given set structure.
Okay.
What women are often presented with by the fitness industry and programs is like, do these little light weights for like a full minute or 2 minutes, just over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's hard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but it's not really intense, right? It's not
Right.
sharp. It's not like full
Yeah.
gas, like
Yeah.
strong contraction. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really what women's bodies respond better to is that full strong contraction under a
Mm-hmm.
challenging load for a
Mm-hmm.
short period of time and then rest. And that rest part's really important, especially
Right.
really important to rest because you just go, 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 and you just get your ass handed to you. It's almost like your nervous system's like, what just happened? What just
Right.
happened? And your cortisol stays high and yada, yada, yada. So
Okay. That's
we
good to
really
find
need
out.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we really need that rest period in between sets. Um, so yeah, so full body strength training days. I like programming like compound movements, heavy squats, lunges, pressing movements, pulling movements, multi-joint movements.
Mm-hmm.
And that works really, really well to stimulate muscle mass production. Um,
Hmm.
and it's quick, doesn't take a lot of time, feels really fucking good, feels really good
What's
after you're done.
like done the intensity of the workout?
Sorry, what was your question?
It feels really good when you're done like that intense of a workout or the multi-joint
Yeah,
movements, the
when you're
workout.
done the workout. Yeah, when you're done the
Yes.
workout, it's like,
Okay.
okay, feel good. Like we
Yes.
we want the workout to kind of give you energy throughout the rest of
Mm-hmm.
your day. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want it to just suck the life
take
force
you down.
energy out of you, and you're just
Right.
a puddle of water on the floor, on the couch, whatever, like wrecked for the rest of your day.
Yeah. 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 That makes sense. Okay, I love that. That was like a really great breakdown. And I also want to speak to something else because as you're talking, I'm like, and we're talking about, time frames and before and afters. I have a lot of, clients who are in their 40s and they want to start lifting weights and they know that they want to take better care of themselves, but it often feels like overwhelming. Like it's like to start feels like a lot of work. And then yeah, so I just like, how do you get women started, and then like what, like just kind of like a realistic time frame, because I do think sometimes they start and it's like 6 weeks and they're like, I don't know, I don't really notice anything different, like that it does, like, yeah, take time, and what does that look like? Hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if I'm looking at, well, it is, let's just validate for all the folks who feel that way. It is a lot of work to get started. There are a
Right.
ton of like, oops, well, thumbs up.
That's okay.
There are so many questions that come up, right? Like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? I heard this was bad. I heard this exercise is bad for the
Yes.
knees. I like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of
Oh
second
yes,
guessing.
yeah.
And if you're somebody with low back pain or with pelvic floor instability or with a knee injury or with frozen
Right.
shoulder, which is all very common in midlife, then it's like, well, what's going to be safe for me? Whatever, right? They're like,
Hmm.
it's when fitness influencers are like, just get started, like, just move. It's like,
Right.
well, well, yeah, but there are some very real obstacles that a lot of women face before getting started.
Hmm.
So I just want to validate that it is hard. If
Hmm.
it was easy and if people didn't need help, I wouldn't have a job. So I'm very
Very
grateful for my
true.
job because
Yeah, totally.
it's given me a really good life. So, but I love it. And I love helping in this way and I love simplifying it for folks. Okay, so how do we actually get started? Well, I like to take a thorough intake history and see, okay, what are the injuries going on? How much time do you
Mm,
realistically have available to you, right? If you only have 30 minutes, 3 days a week, that's all we're going to do. We're only going to do
yeah.
30 minutes, 3 days a week, right? So that part is key. So understanding where you're at, understanding what sort of time constraints we're working with. It's another pet peeve of mine when fitness influencers say, "Oh, we all have the same 24 hours in a day." No, we do not. We do not all have the same
Yeah,
24 hours a
right.
day. So let's be realistic with what we can, what's our commitment level, and what can we work with, and work within that. Um, and then I would, I often ask people when they first start out, okay, tell me all the exercises that you know of that you fucking hate. That if I
Mm,
program them in there, you're gonna come to my house,
right,
you're gonna steal my dog, and you're gonna hold him
right.
ransom until I take those exercises out,
Totally. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So if it's they always say burpees, I'm like, I'm not gonna program burpees anyway. They don't program burpees for
Right.
anybody. But
I
if
don't hear
it's
burpees. I hear lunges. A lot of women are like, I hate lunges. No, lunges or squats. I hear squats
yeah,
a lot. Do you hear that one? I
there,
don't mind squats, but yeah.
well, it depends, right? So if somebody brings that up to me, it's like, I hate lunges. Okay, why? Why do we hate lunges?
Huh. Oh,
What's
good
going
one.
on in your
Yeah.
body, right? Like, what, tell
Right.
me about, well, my knee hurts and I can never really seem to engage my glutes. Okay, so it looks like we have an opportunity to really strengthen the knee. Maybe let's do some leg extensions, some leg
Hmm.
curls, some calf work, tibialis anterior. Let's strengthen the muscles above and below that knee joint, help it to feel better, and then we can introduce some lunges. Because lunges and squat, that is a very like that's like two of the three foundational movement patterns of the human body. So we don't want to avoid those things because we're going to be in
Hmm.
situations where we do need to squat, we do need to lunge. So we want to
Hmm.
train that and get stronger in it. But if it's like, fucking hate walking lunges, Colin. I don't mind just normal stationary lunges, or I don't mind, step back
Right.
lunges with the Smith machine, but I hate walking lunges. No problem. Let's do the ones that you
Hmm.
actually enjoy doing and
Hmm.
avoid the ones that you hate.
Yeah.
Because if you fucking hate doing something, you're not very likely to feel good when you do it, and you're not likely going to
Yeah.
return to it, which is really
Right.
what we want to do. We want to return to
Yeah.
it. We want consistency. Um, so I would try to, as much as possible, to bias
Hmm.
movements that my clients actually enjoy, that feel good, that feel supportive, and actually like help to do the thing that we want to do. Um, I've lost sight of your initial question, but I hope, does that provide enough?
It's okay. Let's see. What was my initial question?
How
Oh
do
no, we
women get
jumped
started?
all
How do I
around
get
completely.
started?
Okay,
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. I think the more we can keep it simple, the better, right? And I
Hmm.
think for anyone listening to this, if you're like, okay, well, what kind of workout plan should I get started with? I think if you just Google full body functional strength training program, you might be surprised with what comes back, and it's
Yes.
probably going to be okay. It's probably going to be okay,
Yeah.
right?
And you also have a really great strong foundation starter guide to get people started.
Ah, I do. So if
Yes.
you're listening and you're like, how do I get started? I just
So don't have
Google
people going and
whatever.
Googling. We have it right here. I'll just back it up a little bit though. I do have to wrap things up just to honor the time, although I could definitely keep going with Colin. And I just want to mention he's been on the podcast before. And the podcast that we did do, I think is, 50, almost an hour long. He goes deeper into some of these pieces. There's pieces that he speaks to that aren't on this podcast. So if you really like what he's about and you want to go deeper with that, and we talk a little bit on here too about like optimizing. Maybe you're someone who has a foundation and you're looking at optimizing that. This is a really great podcast. It's on the Radiant Midlife Podcast, and it's season 6, episode 6, and you can find it on Apple, Spotify, that kind of thing. But I want to bring it back to you, and I just want to ask you, if there's anything else you just want to kind of add to the conversation to just ground it out, and then we'll talk a little bit about your gift.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like to leave folks off with something that I often say at the end of podcast interviews, which is if we can just let go of doing things for the sole purpose of changing our body's appearance, we're going to be better off. We're going to have
Mm-hmm.
far better health outcomes. So
Mm-hmm.
let's just let go of trying to change how our body looks and focus on how we're feeling on the
Mm-hmm.
inside. I think that is really, really key and important. And I think that's what contributes to long term compliance. Not compliance, that's the wrong word, long term consistency. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so just
And
to
that speaks
round it
again
out.
very, yeah, totally. And it kind of brings us full circle to your business name, Rooted Strength Systems. Like perfect. Okay, and then also your free gift. Tell us about it. And then, of course, in the show
Yeah.
notes, we're going to provide a link to it, and we'll have, all of Colin's social media handles, his website, all of those pieces for you as well. But yeah, tell us about your free gift.
So the gift is a 6 week starting strength foundations guide. I probably messed up the order of those words, but
That's
it's a
okay.
full body strength training template that anyone can try out. It really is
Hmm.
towards women in midlife who are just starting out in fitness. So if you're somebody who's a little bit more
Mhm.
advanced, that might not apply to you, but this is really like a
Mhm.
beginner sort of starting
Mhm.
building the foundations. 3 days a week,
Yeah.
30 to 45 minutes is all it'll take. You'll need some heavy stuff though, heavy dumbbells, maybe a bench.
Yeah.
things like that. This little pink
Yeah.
or a blue 2 5 pound weights won't cut it.
Yeah, totally. And you talk about, eliminating like the noise. I can't remember exactly, how I read that you wrote it, but like eliminating the fitness noise and starting with a free gift like this is a really wonderful way to do that. But also, reaching out to Colin if you just want to shortcut the journey. I think it is so amazing when we can just be held in that process and have somebody guide us through it because there is
Hmm.
so much noise. Yeah, and your health and vitality is absolutely worth it. So thanks so much for coming on, Colin, and thanks for everyone who is catching these podcasts. And again, I always like to ask, what is the most important or kind of relevant kind of insight or piece that you're taking away, right? How can you kind of distill today's conversation and how can you honor it? And what's one step that you can take to just honor that insight or that takeaway? And come join us in the Radiant Midlife Facebook group for some additional conversations and shares. And we'll talk to you all very soon. Thanks for watching.